Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Champions. Now, here's your host, former Dallas Cowboys great Preston Pearson, number 26, along with co-host Cowboys superfan Nathan Ross. Here we go.
Well, all right, here we go. Here we go, off and running with another episode of the Champions. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you here with us. Right now in Dallas, the weather is tearing us up. I mean, rain all over the place, and I mean a lot of rain going on. Reminds me of being in California.
No, it doesn't.
No,
but
not
I did
really.
I did see a guy with a long white beard out there building a big boat. I'm not sure exactly what that was all about. But he had 2 dogs and 2 cats. I don't know
You're
what that.
running around a little bit.
I'm not sure what was going on with that.
Well, it's raining cats and dogs, so welcome to the show, everybody. Let me introduce real quick my a loyal, long-time co-host fan of the Dallas Cowboys, Nathan Ross. Nathan, how you doing? Welcome again.
You know, Preston, I'm doing awesome. Anytime I can talk to a legend like you and our guests like Brad, I'm just having a fantastic day, and I love being a part of your podcast.
Well, we are off and running, ladies and gentlemen, with another show. Let me get my earpiece in here real quick so I can hear everything going on. I want to introduce my special guest today with a long list of accolades.
Don't. It's just.
And I'm not going to get to even close to all of the accolades that he deserves, but I just had to pick out a few. It's only 8 or 9 or 10. He's been with the Cowboys since 1976, plus 3 years, if I recall correctly, or if I picked it up correctly, 3 years with the Texas Rangers.
Slapped in the middle of that, which is
Right
why
in the
the
middle.
math doesn't
We'll
work.
get to that.
Okay.
We're going to get to that.
All right,
I
I'll
want
shut
you to
up.
explain that
I'll
3
shut
years. He's done games for the NFL on Westwood One, NFL on Fox, TNT Sunday Night Football, NFL on CBS, NFL Europe, Arena Football League with the Dallas Desperados. He's done collegiate sports, men's Division I basketball championships, men's football.
Wow.
Over a decade as radio voice of the Texas Longhorns.
Well, actually, that's where you can't rely on Wikipedia. I don't know who put that in. Only 2 years as the voice of the Longhorns.
Only 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
minus 8. That's okay. Still, 2 years as the voice of the Texas Rangers.
And I didn't know that.
football. Excuse me, I said Texas Longhorns in football and basketball, right? 2 years?
Yes.
Both? Okay. Worked Major League Soccer, FC Dallas. Approximately 30-plus Cotton Bowl Classics. Really?
Yeah, something like that.
Brad, jeez, Brad.
He is a part of the crew that covered the 1998 Winter Olympics in
Nagano, Japan. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Won the NSSA. What is that?
National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Association, which has been changed to National Sports Media Association.
Well, he's won that award 11 times.
It's actually
Wow,
12.
Brad.
Who's counting?
12,
Yeah.
12
Unbelievable.
times.
Great job,
I missed
Brad.
one. There's
You
that
didn't miss
Wikipedia
anything.
again.
You didn't miss. I'm telling you, you got to Wikipedia. Friends, just in case, Wikipedia, just check it out. Make sure your sources are right.
And to top it all off today, anyway, he's a member of the Texas Radio Hall of Fame, inducted in 2020. Was Wikipedia right there?
Well, I am a member of the Texas Radio Hall of Fame, but that was in the inaugural class, which was in the middle aughts, but I was honored with induction into the media wall of the Texas Sports Hall of Fame in 2020.
And deserves it, every accolade.
Oh,
You know, Nathan, my broadcast partner, Babe Laufenberg, likes to remind me of a great movie quote from the movie with Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman. I think it's undeserved. It's not. It's
Unforgiven. The Unforgiven.
And
Yes.
Clint Eastwood is about to he's a good bad guy,
Yes.
and he's about to do away with Gene Hackman, who's a bad guy.
Yeah,
Yes, he
even
is
though
in
he's a
that.
sheriff.
And
yeah.
and Eastwood has the gun pointed at him, and Hackman looks up and he says, "I don't deserve to die like this." And Eastwood says, "Deserves got nothing to do with it." So
Wonderful.
there you go.
Deserve got
Anytime
nothing
someone
to
says
do with it.
deserve, that's what I tell them.
Great analogy. Great movie, too, Brad.
Yeah.
It was a great movie. I've seen it about 5 times myself.
Absolutely.
Okay, we get to a segment that we've just started, Brad, for your information. The last couple of shows, we start out with this, which comes from people who have viewed or listened to our episodes.
Good.
Last week we had Nate Newton
Yeah.
on.
Big Nate.
And we have coming up an individual that is from Texas this time, and it's a woman for the first time, that has a question. It's called Ask a Pro. That's you.
Uh-oh.
So, Nathan, if you would.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to thank everybody who writes to us and does this. I want to thank them for taking the time out for watching the show and giving us these questions. And on this segment of Ask a Pro, we have Angie McClung from Bonham, Texas. And Brad, her question for you is, what was the most memorable game you ever called?
You know, I've done 938
Can't remember.
Cowboy games, but I always believe that you go with the answer that comes to you most quickly. And so for me, my favorite Cowboy game that I broadcast was, and Preston will remember this game quite well, December 1979 against Washington at Texas Stadium. It was the last game of the regular season. The winner was going to win the division. The loser ran the risk of missing the playoffs, which happened to Washington because of a points differential tiebreaker with the Bears. And Vern Lundquist, I was the albatross around Vern's neck for the first 8 years I was on the network, and he was in Japan doing a boxing tournament for ABC television with Sugar Ray Leonard. So Charlie Waters was hurt that year. He injured his knee. Yeah, so Charlie hurt his knee in Seattle in the second preseason game. So Vern was in Japan. I'm doing play-by-play. Charlie Waters is doing color. So Tony Dorsett was hurt. Drew Pearson had injured his knee spiking the ball on a touchdown against the Giants a week or two before. Yep. And so it's a back-and-forth game. This is why it was my favorite game. It's back and forth, and there were at least 8 Hall of Famers on the field that day. And the Cowboys had to slug and slog and push and every ounce of what they had to score. And then Washington ran a toss sweep to Riggins. John Riggins went 66 yards around right end, and boom. So we're down now. Yeah, and so we are down now to nearing the 2-minute warning, and Washington is up by 6.
Yes.
And the Cowboys are out of timeouts. And it is Washington's got the ball somewhere around their own 25 or 30, and it's 3rd down and about 3.
Yep.
And they call the same toss sweep to Riggins to the right that had broken for 66 yards earlier in the game. And Larry Cole, one of the smartest and slowest men who ever played the game.
Defensive tackle at the time.
Defensive tackle. And I've talked to Larry about this just recently. He diagnoses the play. He reads the center, and based on the center, he said, they are either running a trap or they're running that toss sweep, and I think they're going that way. So the ball is snapped, and as the backside of the Washington offensive line is pulling, Larry Cole runs right through everybody, and he gets to Riggins right after the football does, tackles him for a loss.
Yes.
So Dallas, with no timeouts, gets the ball back on the punt.
That's That's right.
And now here comes Staubach, and it is a little pass to Tony Hill, a little pass to the tight end. Third down, of course, is going to Preston Pearson.
Of course.
Down the field, Dink and Duncan probably got to fourth down at least once because
Yep.
Roger was like that. And all the way down the field. And so now there's, 3 seconds left, and they are on the goal line. And
Yeah.
Staubach, this is another great story that Roger
Wonderful.
told me once later. What happens is Staubach throws a touchdown pass to Tony Hill to tie the game. Raphael Septien kicks the extra point. Cowboys win by 1. They make the playoffs. They win the division. Washington doesn't. The great thing about that was Roger told me later, you had played in Washington like 3 weeks before. And Tom Landry head coach sent in all the plays, and Tom sent in a little post pass to Billy Joe Dupree, the tight end, and it got intercepted in Washington. And Tom sent it in again at Texas Stadium.
Sounds like Tom.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the messenger guard, which is how they did the play calling,
Yeah.
the messenger guard brings the play in, and Rogers says, we're not doing that. And he turns to Tony Hill, and he says,
Whoa.
if Lamar Parrish, the cornerback,
Yes.
if Parrish presses you,
Which means he comes up and gets in his face.
I'm
Yes.
throwing a fade to you, you just go beat him. And Parrish came up on the line of scrimmage and pressed Tony Hill, and Tony, a big receiver, runs the fade, and Roger lobs it over him, touchdown, extra point, and the crowd goes wild. That, because of everything that was on the line, because it was
Yes.
one of the first games I got a chance to do play-by-play, and
Yes,
because
sir.
because it was Larry Cole making that play, because it was Preston and Billy Joe Dupree, two of my all-time favorites, along with Tony Hill and Roger making these plays down the field. That's my favorite game.
Man.
And that's all the time we have. Good night, everybody.
No, and
We're
that's
going
great.
home
And-
now, folks.
And Brad, I mean, to be honest with you, that on that game, I just happened to watch that not long ago, and Preston, I mean, literally on those drives had one for like 25 yards that got us down to the 10-yard line from the 40 down to the 10. So Preston, was so amazing that game, and I'm surprised. I'm not surprised. You've probably seen him many times make a third down play. From
Well,
the time
he was
were-
Preston was the best third down back in football, and he virtually invented the position of slot
Oh,
third
yes.
down back. Now I will never forget in 1977, which was Tony Dorsett's rookie year.
Yes, sir.
Tom Landry made the decision, a wise one, I think, based on Dorsett's frame.
Correct.
We're not going to start him, which he never started a rookie in the 70s. And we're not going to start him, and we're going to hold him to somewhere around 18 touches a game. And now it's clear that he's an electric player, and so we're getting into this. And I think we were into November, and I believe it was in Pittsburgh, which, of course, where Preston had previously been a star. I
Yes,
think
sir.
I won't swear it was Pittsburgh, but I feel like it was.
It was.
It was, okay.
It was.
And Dorsett's going to get the start. And Landry has announced that we're going to start Dorsett because he gave whatever reason it was. And rarely were Vern and I in the locker room before the game. But we were that day, and we had a pretty good rapport, and I walked up to Preston. I said, look, I just want to know what your feelings are about this. You've been starting all year, and Landry says this is the deal, and so this is why Dorsett's going to start. And Preston said, well, that's a bunch of doo-doo.
Oh, good. Okay, I respect that, Preston.
Which it
Okay.
was, of course.
Right.
It was,
But you knew what was coming.
I knew it was coming. But the thing that hurt me more than anything, it wasn't my performance from the previous week, or I think we lost to the Cardinals prior to that. But the thing that hurt me most was I was going back to Pittsburgh.
Back to Pittsburgh, yeah.
I was
Yeah.
going back to the place.
Yeah.
Tony Dorsett was also from Pittsburgh.
Right.
But
I
how
was
many
going
Super Bowl
back-
rings did you win with the Steelers? Did you win 2 with them?
No, just one.
Just one
Super
with them,
Bowl.
okay.
74.
Okay.
With Pittsburgh. But the thing again that bothered me most was my kids were born in Pittsburgh. My son, to this very day, is still a Steelers fan. So I was going back with all of this revenge in my mind and my heart, and was ready to do all I could to win
Yes.
that game in
sir.
Pittsburgh. By the way, we lost that game in Pittsburgh, and there are a lot of reasons for that. But that was the reason why it hurt me so much. It wasn't anything outside of that, because later on, I think you will recall that Tom Landry made the statement that I was a professional.
Yeah.
You dang
And,
right.
and you know what comes from Tom Landry?
Nothing good ever. No roses.
You really didn't get those kinds of roses or those kinds of statements unless you're Bob Lilly or Roger or somebody
Yeah.
like that. But when he said, he's a pro, he's a professional,
Yes.
that sold
That's-
me on Tom Landry and the Cowboys from that point on. And
And you
gave
could
it
block
100%.
too, Preston. You could block too. I mean, let's get to that, but boy, you could block too. You
Well,
couldn't just
I prided
pass it back.
myself
You blocked.
on being able to do every facet of the running back position.
Boy, you
And that's
sure
why,
did.
again, it wasn't a problem for me to move over and let the Hall of Famer come in and do his thing.
right.
I just moved out and started using my hands.
Yeah, hold up
way-
those hands. These are the biggest, best hands ever.
Wow.
Ever. And don't forget, a lot of people
you all take a
forget.
look at that.
Dang.
A lot of people forget Preston was a phenomenal basketball player at Illinois in
Right,
college.
right, Preston.
And he made the conversion to professional football. And did the Colts draft you? Did they have you first or
I was
sign
their
you first?
12th round draft choice.
12th round pick.
Yeah, they don't
He never
They don't
played a
have
down
12
of college.
round.
Brad, he never played a down
Right.
of college football. I
That's
mean, to
right.
go to Baltimore into that run, I mean, that's a tough place to play physicality-wise, and to go in there and to handle the way he did, I just so impressive. I'm his co-host, but I'm proud of him too.
Thank you guys, both of you. Since we're talking about being drafted and
Yes.
high school and basketball and all that stuff about me, let's go to you.
I was not drafted.
You were not drafted. Were you an athlete? Were you an athlete?
No.
Okay, you started out at New Trier.
New Trier High
Township
School,
High
right?
School,
Right. A phenomenal high school in suburban Chicago.
Suburban Chicago. There it is. What was it called? Travions?
The Trevs, they used Indians as a nickname back then, and then later they split into East and West, and then they re-amalgamated into one. But it was either the Trevs or the Indians.
Okay.
But what I did do is we had a student radio station.
Yep.
That's my next question.
So
How
Yeah.
did you get into and wanting to be into journalism?
I
Give us a shot
started.
of
I
your-
started there in my sophomore year in Winnetka, Illinois. I started there in my sophomore year, and I think I did some studio. I think I did a studio football scoreboard show in my sophomore year.
Was that your desire to do that, or you just fell into that?
What I knew by then was that I wanted to be a baseball announcer.
Yes, sir.
Oh, already.
Yeah. Because here's the thing: I figured out one day when I was like a sophomore in high school.
Speaking of,
Great
New
swimming
Trier,
program. Yeah,
this is the first high school indoor swimming pool, which was at New Trier.
yeah. It's a huge high school, and they've got a phenomenal swimming program, great legendary wrestling program. So I figured out pretty early that I was not going to be playing center field for the White Sox or anybody else.
There's a couple of your alums.
Oh, let me tell you, the alumni list
Wow.
is impressive. Charlton Heston. Do you have Ann
Jeez.
Margaret in there?
I do not have her in there, but she is obviously in there. You got a long list.
No, it's
I just picked out a couple of guys that I thought.
Jeez.
Now he was before me, but I'm not
Yeah,
as old
yes.
as. But yeah, I mean, no, it's a really impressive list of alumni.
Well, we
And-
got one more. That
okay.
I want
All
Trey
right.
to throw up there real quick.
Let's see.
One of the alums from New Trier. Can we pull that up real quick, Trey? If not, I'll just say who it is.
No, hold on, don't say it yet. Let
Yeah,
me see if I can guess it. It's coming. So
Okay.
I'll vamp by saying that we had a student radio station, and I knew that I wanted to be a baseball announcer. What got me going in the business was two baseball teams in Chicago, and I would watch them every day.
Cubs
Yes,
and
sir.
White
Cubs
Sox.
and White Sox,
Right.
and I would watch them every day. And one day I had literally an epiphany. I must have been 14 or 15. I had an epiphany that the announcers I was hearing doing these games were the same announcers every day. And what did that mean? That meant they were at the ball game every day.
Absolutely, Brad.
I want to go to the ball game every day.
Okay.
And so that was my
Yes.
that was my way to be able to go. And so that's how I was able to get my start at New Trier. By the time I was a senior, I did play-by-play of baseball and basketball. We had a pretty good basketball team.
I got an early start.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I applied to Missouri, the only place I applied, because there weren't a lot of broadcasting schools back then. It was just right after the invention of the printing press and the discovery of
But
sunlight.
that's Missouri is still one of the
Correct.
all-time
That's
best
right.
places to go.
Yeah, best journalism school in the country, undergraduate.
Yeah.
Syracuse will claim theirs, and they've turned out a great bunch of people. But they didn't have that school going when I was applying. So I went to Missouri, got a journalism degree, and
Right.
that's how I got my first professional job in radio, and everything else kind of went from there.
And Jack Brickhouse, that's one that really stood out for you. I've heard you talk about Jack Brickhouse before. Is that the right word?
Jack Brickhouse was a legendary sportscaster in Chicago. He
sir.
did Cubs
for
and
sure.
White Sox television. He did Bears radio, did the occasional Bulls game, and that was who I wanted to be. I didn't think about I honestly, Nathan, I wasn't thinking about money. I wasn't thinking about network television. I just wanted to be Jack Brickhouse. And he was a great gentleman. I met him a couple of times. There's a big statue of him on Lakeshore Drive across the street from the Chicago Tribune building. People can see it whenever they're in Chicago, walking the Magnificent Mile. And that was my guy. I wanted to be Jack Brickhouse.
So,
So that means you were a Bear fan, right?
Sure.
Brad, so you were Bears, everything Chicago, that was your team.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because, yes, the answer is yes. And my mother was where I got being a sport. My dad was a tremendous athlete, high school track records when he was in high school.
Wow.
But my mother was the fan. And she brought me and my brother up to the year for all the Chicago teams. So I was for the Cubs and the White Sox. Well, now you can't be for both.
No, I was going to.
And I just kind of morphed
how
into
about
a
Green
Cub
Bay?
fan.
Were you?
If
It's
you're
right
a
across
Bears
the river,
fan,
really, so-
if you're a Bears fan, then everybody was the enemy. But the Bears were terrible. The Bears were always terrible.
They were
say that.
every time. Wow, I didn't. realize that.
I would say pretty much the Bears won the NFL championship in 1963, and I remember there wasn't any television of the championship game. And I remember listening to that championship game on the radio in my grandmother's kitchen. They had a phenomenal defense.
Bill George
Yes.
and all of those guys.
Yes.
Wow.
He was a middle linebacker. Joe Fortunato.
Yes.
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 Their quarterback was Bill Wade from Vanderbilt. He ran a
Wade.
great quarterback sneak. He was a terrible passer. In fact, his backup, Rudy Bukic from USC,
Yes, yes.
when Wade retired or was cut or whatever the next year, Bukic actually became the Bears starter and won the NFL passing championship based on percentage one year. But Billy Wade was a good leader, and he was the quarterback, but the defense was the whole story of that championship team.
Gotcha.
So you're in college right now. So where did you find time for a fraternity? I know you were.
Yeah, that wasn't hard, really. They're
Was that a
Columbia,
catalyst for you
Missouri.
getting into
No,
journalism?
no, they're in Columbia, Missouri, and there's my fraternity, Alpha Epsilon Pi, and there were a few guys from Chicago who went in the fraternity, and you go through Rush, and I thought, okay, that will be, because I don't know a lot of people, and that'll be a good thing.
way.
And it's a Jewish fraternity, and I'm Jewish, and so it's a way to keep your holy cow. I'm not sure when that was, but I'm not in that picture. I promise you that.
That just.
That's a
I picked that out because that was a representative of the logo.
Yeah, the
that I
recent
just saw,
recent
but that's
AEPI.
Some of the kids.
Yeah.
Well,
Salon.
they look like they're having fun, though. They look happy.
Yeah.
Well, I saw a young lady in there, and I wasn't sure. That's an alum.
Brad Pitt is an alum. He went. Well, I don't know if he graduated, but he went to the University of Missouri.
Wow.
He was.
What an actor.
Not when I was there. No, not
Okay.
when I was there.
Okay.
I got to be older than him. George C. Scott.
He was a part of.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of my dad's
Cheryl
favorite
Crow
actors right
went
there.
to Missouri.
Okay.
Wow.
Great singer, Cheryl Crow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Austin. I think she still lives in Austin.
I think so.
Okay. So Missouri had a lot of alums that
Yep.
branched out into all kinds of other things: politics, acting, broadcasting,
Yep.
the school.
That was his first, Brad. That was your first paid gig, I guess you would say, was at the Columbia School. Is that correct? Your first?
Oh, no, I mean,
broadcasting?
I got paid for a part-time disc jockey gig at a commercial station in Columbia my junior year. I think KTGR,
Good
Tiger.
experience, though.
But my first having a journalism degree from Missouri is what got me my first job. I was in my senior year in college. I was in the first year of the Vietnam lottery.
Yes, sir.
And if your lotteries, they just put all the birthdays, all 365 of them, literally in a hopper, and they would pull out little slips. Now, if you were about 200, 225 and above, then you were safe. You weren't going to have to go. And mine was 44. So I scrambled and was able to get into a National Guard unit.
Wonderful.
Which was really hard to do in Kansas City, Kansas. I got a deferment to finish my senior year. I did my active duty as an infantryman in Fort Polk, Louisiana. I don't recommend spending the summer in Fort Polk, Louisiana. No disrespect to any of the folks in Fort Polk. Yeah. And came back in the fall of 1970. Didn't have a job. My family had moved from Chicago to Dallas, which is how I got to Dallas. And to me, I always say that's providential. I didn't have anything to do with that. My dad could have taken a job in Cincinnati.
With Pfizer, right?
He was with Pfizer, but then he left the job with Pfizer and took a job in Dallas with some guys with Lee. He was an optometrist. And with Lee Optical, for whom he had worked in previous years, but always out of state. We moved around a lot. But so he took that job. He didn't like the corporate life at Pfizer. He left that job. He came to Dallas, and you know the old joke about the kid who went to school and while he was gone, his parents moved. I mean, that's
you?
That's me. They moved while I was in the Army. When I got out, I didn't have a job, so I came back to Dallas, and it took me 3 or 4 months to find a job. And the job I found was with a radio station that doesn't exist anymore, WRR AM in Dallas, and it was as a news reporter. This is one thing, boy, I tell kids this all the time. People say, I want to be this when they get out of school. Yeah, great. That's great that you want to be that. But you know what you need first is a job.
Yes.
Get a job, and then worry
Yes.
about what you're going to be.
Yeah.
So I got a job as a news reporter, and the guy was very upfront that there were 2 reasons that I got that job. I had a journalism degree from the University of Missouri,
Which is big.
and I would work for $600 a month, which in 1970 actually paid for my car and an apartment.
Wow. Awesome.
Not so much today.
Not so much today. Today, I'm not
And
sure that
that's-
gets your gas.
So
And Brad, go ahead.
how do you get to the point to where you're now with the great Vern Lundquist?
So I was with WRR for 4.5 years. And,
that long?
Yeah, and then I was going through some, in the early 70s, going through some life changes, and I needed a change of scenery, and I was offered the opportunity to go to Denver as the public relations director of the Denver Dynamos of the North American Soccer League. And I did that in 1975, 5, the team folded, and then I got a job with the Chicago Sting. So I was there in 76, and in 76, there were changes in the radio industry in Dallas. And the guy who had been hired before me didn't work out. And so I started in the middle of the 76 season, and that picture of me and Vern is when, like I said, I was the albatross around his neck for the first 8 years.
Throw that picture up there again. Looking at Brad there.
Yeah, look at that Vern.
Wow.
Yeah, that's neither of us looks anything like that now. But that was in 76, and we were together for 8 years till the end of the 83 season. In 84, Vern he had been doing college football for CBS, and they moved him to the NFL. So he couldn't do Cowboy games anymore, so I just moved over a chair.
You just moved in.
And
See, all of
Preston,
that experience was great for you to move right into that slot. Go ahead.
and Preston, we really have Brad's dad to thank that he is the voice of our Cowboys, because not only did he move to Dallas, but I overheard Brad talking before when he was in Denver and he was getting a little discouraged. He was thinking about becoming an attorney, and his dad told him, "Don't do it."
Yeah, where'd you hear that story? Where'd you hear that story?
I did some research. For one of your podcasts.
I was out of work. The team folded in Denver.
Yes.
And I was looking for a job, couldn't find one. And I really was about to say, it's not going to happen. I'll go to law school. My dad traveled a lot for his work. And he came through Denver, and I told him what was going on. He said, "No, you're not quitting. You're not quitting yet." So I said, "Well, okay." So do you remember Mike Pyle, who was the center for the Bears?
Yes, I do.
Mike Pyle was the general manager of the Chicago Sting of the North American Soccer League.
Okay.
Former Bears center.
Yes.
He got fired. And their PR director, a guy named James Walker from Houston, was promoted to general manager. And we had played them 3 times, so we'd gotten to know each other, and now he needed a PR guy to replace him. And so he hired me. And that's how I got from Denver to Chicago. And then I got a couple of offers in the summer of 76, and wound up going to KRLD, which had the Cowboys broadcast rights. And that's how I started doing Cowboy games.
And went on to become Hall of Fame inductee and all of that stuff, man. That's great stuff.
And Preston, real fast. I mean, this is real fast. I mean, he started in 1971, I believe, Sportsline. He was the first one to create a show, like a sports talk show like we have today. Brad was the first one to bring that in Dallas, and and now we have so many of them today. Brad, do you feel responsible for all these different shows? Because you were the first one to start that.
It would be like if you asked a father if he was responsible for the acts of all of his children as adults. But I'm proud of the fact that I was able to do that. I was making, I don't know, $10,000 a year, and I just wanted. They knew I wanted to be a sportscaster, so I kept telling them, "Hey, I want to do," and I talked him into giving me a 5-minute spot in a half-hour noon news block we had every weekday. I said, "I want to be in sports." They said, "Look, finally, just to shut me up." They said, "We'll give you 5 minutes at 12:30, but we're not paying you anymore." I said, "I don't care about that." So I did that, and I had heard the sports talk shows in Chicago. There was on WBBM, there was a guy named Rick Weaver who in the 60s was one of the Cowboys play-by-play men in the early 60s. But I would sit with my mother in the kitchen when she was making dinner, and Ernie Banks was on one day. And I called him, and I could talk, and I said, "I talked to Ernie Banks." Are you kidding? So now I'm at WRR. I'd been there a little less than a year, right up at a year. And I just kept pushing. I said, "We could do that. There isn't that here. It doesn't exist. We could do that." And by 72, I think it was either 71 or 72, we did the first one. The reason I think it might have been 72 is I remember that Toby Harrow, who was the Rangers shortstop, was on one of our first shows. Now think of this in today's media world. We were in a big old drafty building in Fair Park, where the State Fair of Texas is. And we got guests to come down on Sunday night. I said, give me a show. We don't have a show. And they said, well, oh, God, we'll give you a show 6 o'clock Sunday night, but we're not paying you anymore. I said, I don't care about the money. So I started, and on one of my first shows, I had all of these people come down. Hayden Fry, who was the head football coach at SMU, Toby Harrow, and Mike Ditka, who was the Cowboys receivers coach.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I'm proud of that, Nathan. I'm not necessarily proud of where the industry has taken that kind of programming, but those are separate questions. I'm proud of having the opportunity to do that.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so now you are the play-by-play man and gone on to do a lot of good things in that role. But you had some assistants, right?
Always.
A couple of guys that were alongside of you as color commentators.
Oh, yeah.
One of them was Dale Hansen.
Yeah, Dale was Tex Sham, the Cowboys president and general manager, believed in having.
Dale.
There's Dale. Tex's philosophy was, I want the number one TV guy in the market on my radio broadcast. That's what Vern was. Vern left, and it was Dale. So in 1984, Vern left. We used a bunch of different color analysts, and Dale did about 3 games, and Tex said, that's good. It'll be him. And we were together 10 years, and I'm telling you, we had a ball. We never had a crossword. He had a much different approach. Dale's a fan, and we're very good friends to this day.
Yeah.
Dale was a fan. He wasn't doing any analyzing.
Yeah.
But he was a fan, and we were able to make it like you were listening to 2 buddies sitting around
Having a good time
yeah.
over a beer or two.
Yeah, or 2.
With him.
Yeah, with
He's
Dale,
a comedian. He's a funny man.
Well, as a matter of fact, one of his favorite things to do on the road, I couldn't get him to go to dinner because he wanted to find a stand-up comedy club to watch. He loved stand-up comedy. He still does.
Dale Hansen. Okay,
And you and Troy Aikman made a trick on him one time when they were going to talk about Dale Hansen, and Troy did something talking about Dale Halistray instead, just to joke.
Well,
with
it was an
the
anniversary. Yeah,
performances.
it was an anniversary. One of Dale's anniversaries at WFAA television in Dallas, and it was, I don't know what it was, 20 years, 25 years. So Troy and I had done some NFL Europe games together, and Troy and Dale Hellestrae, the Cowboys' backup center and long snapper, were very good
Yes.
friends. So the joke was he and I were going to come out together. We were going to talk about Dale, and so Troy is talking
That's
about all the things
absurd.
that Dale did, and so then my job is to stop him and say, Hellestrae never did any of those things. And he said, or maybe it was the other way around. Maybe his job was
Yeah.
to stop me and to say, Hellestrae never did it. I said, no, it's Hansen. It's Dale Hansen. And he said, oh, well, I got nothing then. And Troy and Dale were very good friends. That was the
Very
joke.
cool moment.
I can imagine.
was
Dale
fun.
Hansen and you and your other portions of the team. Today's additions, assistants with you. Mickey Spagnola, Christy Scales. Who else is with you?
Well, Babe Laufenberg and I have been
Yes.
Babe. Yeah.
when I don't remember. Well, when I left for the 3 years to do baseball, I came back, and then Dale wasn't there. And Babe, when he retired as a player, did some pre and post, and he was our 3rd man for 2 Super Bowls in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came back from doing the Rangers in 98, it was just me and Babe. And it's been, except for 1 year when he had some things going on that he didn't do it, and Charlie Waters was the analyst. Since 98, it's been just me and Babe in the booth. Now, that's longer than both of our marriages, multiples put together. Christy Scales is our sideline reporter, but she's been with the network since 1991. She has served almost every capacity. She did a couple of preseason games in the booth as the analyst. She was the network producer. She was the in-booth producer. And then sometime in the 90s, when our sideline reporter, Michael Ray, took a job that necessitated his not being able to travel, Christy went to the sideline, and she's been there ever since, and she's phenomenal.
Yeah,
she's just an integral part of the team.
You got a great team that you're working with. I think we may have lost Nathan for a moment.
Uh-oh.
But
Come back, Nathan.
Trey will get him back,
Okay.
and we'll carry on from there. But okay,
There he is.
You
Sorry,
How'd you go,
guys.
Nathan? What'd you need?
No, it just shut me off on accident. I just
Okay.
got back on.
Okay.
So you guys have your team put together, and you do all these games. And before we get to the next step in your illustrious career, what happened? Why did you have to go and do 3 years worth of Rangers?
Well, I didn't have to. I looked forward to it. I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Right.
so it was
Barry,
by choice.
yes, and
Yes.
Barry Switzer didn't like some. I got very emotional in a pre-season, pre-game extemporaneous segment after Switzer had been on television with Dale. And
okay.
remember when he punched him on the arm
Yes,
and he'd
I
accused him
remember
of
that.
making up stories. The background on this was the year Jimmy Johnson left. Switzer comes in. All the assistants are guys that Jimmy brought.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it seemed to me, and having played for multiple teams, you'll completely understand this. Suddenly, the chemistry of the coaching staff changed.
Yes,
Because
yes.
those were Jimmy
Right.
guys.
Yep.
Now
Yes,
there's no
sir.
Jimmy.
Yep.
So there's a little infighting for who's going to sit at the right hand of the king.
Yep.
And I went to Dale one day and I said, "Have you noticed this?" And he said, "Yeah, I think I have." And I said, "Well, I don't think I have enough to report it on the air, but why don't we both keep an eye on it? And if we figure out we got any more, then we'll go." Well, Dale went on the air with it.
Of
so,
course.
so
That's Dale.
right, he couldn't contain himself. So
Yes.
Switzer on a Sunday night, they call it a car wash when the head coach goes through all the TV stations. So he's sitting with Dale, and Switzer brings it up. He's angry, but you can't really tell with him if he's angry or kidding. And he starts pounding Dale on the arm and accuse him of making up stories. Well, we weren't making up stories. And so that really irritated me. I had some other things going on in my life that I allowed to influence my thinking. Not the best judgment, but that's how it was. And so I made some, I would call them accurate but intemperate remarks on the air in a pregame show, in a pregame segment, a preseason game segment. And as a result, to say there was tension between Switzer and me and Dale would be to really play it down. Now, at that time,
Wow, I didn't
the
know
Rangers were changing stations. Their beloved play-by-play man, the late, great Mark Holtz, could not make the radio station switch because of his wife was ill and he was invested in the health insurance program on the station the Rangers had been on. So he started doing television. So I moved to radio because on one hand, we're very frosty relations going on with Coach Switzer. And I started in the business to do baseball, and this was my chance because Eric Nadel, to this day one of my dear friends, Hall of Fame Rangers announcer, he needed a partner. He was moving over to the first seat. And so, and they were changing radio stations, so they needed someone with some local identification. I'd been doing the Cowboys 18 years by that point, so I had that. And so I did that for 3 years, and then they thought that they would like to go in a different direction after the 3 years. Coach Switzer's tenure with the Cowboys ended. I was invited by the radio station, which was then KVIL, to come back And the Joneses have been great to me, very accepting, incredibly accepting, and it's been great ever since. So that was 1998.
Awesome.
That whole scenario was kind of interesting to say the least. But Jimmy, Jerry, and Barry. Barry coached both of those guys at Arkansas. So, whatever tensions and things that went on had to be great for that whole thing to blow up, because they were certainly tied together with a championship caliber college football team.
Yeah, no question. And the reason that Barry was hired was he was available and Jerry knew him.
Yeah.
Familiarity is a big deal to Jerry. Comfortability when he's making a hire like that. And so I think that's why
Zimmer's here right now.
Yeah, partly. I do think Mike McCarthy had to sign on to that. In fact, I know he did.
Sure.
But yeah, it's easier to convince Jerry to do something if he's got some familiarity with it.
Right.
Sounds like it's well. And let me go to this. Our Ask a Pro question to you earlier was a little bit different. The answer that you gave was a little bit different than what I had envisioned it might be.
Because I've done 4 Super Bowls, 3 of them with them.
Well, you've done all those Super Bowls.
Right.
But I remember one particular play in a season that culminated after, I'm not sure how many years he played in the league.
We're talking about Emmett.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
Emmett.
Yeah.
Oh.
Emmett getting that.
What a call here.
That what was it? Wasn't the first down, was it?
Well, it was.
Anyway,
It
4 or
was.
5 yards.
But yeah, and so this is. He broke the NFL rushing record, Walter Payton's record, and right. And this
I want
is.
you to go ahead and call it right
Well, so
now.
what we're counting yards. So here's the handoff to Hutchinson, hands off to Smith, through the line, banging, hand down. I'm waiting. Is he down? Is he not? That could be it. That should do it. Touch.
Wow.
And that now I think this. Yeah, this. The captions here are from the television broadcast.
Yes.
And so people asked me all that summer, because we knew Emmett was going to break the record.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what you're going to say? And I said, I do not, because I'm not good with scripting
Yeah, there
calls.
you go.
I think for me, I have to be prepared. I have to let the game come to me and hope that I find the right words. The only thing I knew, because I knew what a high opinion Emmett had of Walter Payton.
Yes, sir. Yes,
That
sir.
I was going to somehow mention Walter in the call. So what I wound up saying was, once we knew for sure he had the yardage, was move over Sweetness, make a place for Emmett.
I thought that's what we
So
I
the
got
question
goosebumps.
that the lady
I
from
got
Bonham
goosebumps right
asked,
now.
the lady from Bonham asked about my most memorable game.
Oh, okay.
So that
okay.
they were a below average team.
Right.
They lost that game to Seattle.
Yes, they did.
The game was now. If you'd asked for a moment, then it would have to be that.
Yes,
It would
sir.
have to be that.
Preston, wasn't that amazing hearing him do that on the Champions podcast, reliving that? Unbelievable moment.
I just love the way he said it. I mean,
Yes.
would you say that one more time for all of our fans who are listening and or watching?
Oh, man.
What was it? Move over.
Yeah, move over
Sweetness.
Sweetness, make a place for Emmett.
That's
I
right.
love that. I
love
love
that.
that. And even more
Yes.
that hit me was what they had on the screen there a little while ago, and that was "Long Live the King."
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and I think that was Pat Summerall's call, and he was, and he is, and no one will ever break that record, because running backs are not the same part of the game as they were
Don't
when
use
Emmett
them.
played.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't like that either,
Rushing
Brad.
game's not used
Yeah.
very much.
Evolution,
anymore.
Nathan. Evolution.
True.
The only constant is change.
Yeah. Go ahead, Preston.
Yeah. You got a question for him? Go for it. You better get it now.
No, real fast. It's just I never liked the dual, the 3 running back scheme. Watching Emmett over the years, he would get better as the game goes on, and it's like by the third and fourth quarter, you're setting up all these tacklers like you're going to go run into them, and then you do something different than you did the first quarter. So I always like to watch Emmett get better and better as the game go on. And
it's a different game now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll take a running back out right when he's gelling and put the other one in.
No, it's not about. It's about taking the running back out when he's gelling. It's about the fact that it's become a passing game. Mm-hmm. How many times in the 70s on those teams? I've asked Staubach this. How many times? What percentage of the time would you say that your lineup, not the starting lineup, in a crucial part of the game, included 3 wide receivers?
not very often,
right?
Not back
You
in
had
the
2
day.
wide receivers. You had a
2
tight end,
ends,
one tight end most of the
tight
time.
end.
You had a fullback,
Yes.
and then because of your unique talents, they would make you the
Somebody in
running
that
back
slot.
so that and they put you in the slot and put you wide. And but I asked Staubach a few years ago, what do you think you would have accomplished if you had had 4 and 5 wide receiver sets and played in the shotgun the whole time?
Johnny
Interesting
Unitas or-
point.
He'd have rewritten, and so would Aikman.
And
Good point, Brad.
I also think, too, that one of the things that has aided today's athletes, especially quarterbacks, is the fact that there's somebody upstairs calling the plays. Because I can remember back in the day when Johnny Unitas or even Roger, Terry Bradshaw, for example, those guys, when they ran, they didn't just slide down. They were going to get hit. Ask Roger. Roger had, 12 concussions?
That's
over
what
the
Landry
time.
hated that when he would run.
Hated it when he would run. But today's guys, they don't get hit as much as those guys did back in the day. And guess what
Good
they
point,
had to
Preston.
do? Once they got hit, they had to get right back up. Snot running out of their nose, blood all over the place.
Looking out their
And they
ear
had-
hole.
They had to make the next play call.
Right. That's right.
And these guys today, there's somebody upstairs up there making the next call for them.
This is my theory. For most of our lives in football, the way the game was played in the NFL trickled down. Colleges copied it. High schools copied them.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, and I personally think it was when Todd Dodge had the great success that he did at Carroll High School in South Lake, Texas, with spread multiple formations. No one could stop it.
Yeah, true.
And then other high schools started doing it. And then colleges started doing it. And the next thing you know, you can't find a tight end. You can't draft a fullback because everyone is playing 4 and 5 wide receivers. And then it just moved its way up the chain. Now you can find tight ends now in the middle rounds. Rarely you'll get a high pick, but my theory is that wide open spread football that Todd Dodge introduced at Carroll High School in South Lake, Texas, moved its way up the chain, got into the NFL. Now, when would a rookie quarterback play?
3 years, 4
Right?
years down the road.
Now he's got to start.
Yeah.
Now he's got to start. Because now you have a salary cap,
Yep.
and
Yes, sir.
TikTok. You got to get the guy going, and so they have adapted to that style, and as a result, Nathan,
Yes, sir.
you're not going to see a guy get those kinds of carries because that's not the offensive style they're trying to play. You do have to
Yes, sir.
have someone who is competent to run short yardage, goal line, pick up a first down. That's why
Yes,
I
sir.
was in favor of the Cowboys re-signing Ezekiel Elliott. I don't think he's a
Me
20
also.
I don't think he's a 25 carry back, but I'll promise you, he's got a lot left in short yardage. He's a great blocker.
Yeah.
He's a good receiver. He's
team guy.
really
Right.
good in the locker room. He's a great teammate, and
Yes.
they'll be better off. But those days, Nathan, of a guy just feeding a guy, and by the
Yeah.
time you get to about carry 21, 22, 23, 24, now the other team's worn down, and he's just getting revved up. Those are gone.
Exactly, though. That's exactly what I miss.
Boy, I'll tell you what, we need about 3 or 4 more hours with Brad. Our time is running out here a little bit, but talk a little bit for our listeners out there from your perspective. I know you just came from the OTAs out there with the new guys that were just drafted along with, I guess, the whole team.
Yeah, some of them. It's still voluntary.
Activities. Yeah. Some of the guys aren't here. We know that, Micah and CD and some others perhaps. What's your perspective on the 2024 Dallas Cowboys team?
I tell people who ask me again at the end of training camp, because that's when they put pads on.
Yeah.
And I can tell you about linemen. I can tell you what I think I know about linemen only after they've put pads on.
Yeah, that's true.
Only after they have played a couple of preseason games. Only after we see those pass rush drills in training camp, and that's when you can tell a little bit more about whether a corner can cover or what kind of moves a receiver has. Mm-hmm. So I'll know a little more. My gut feeling going in is they've lost a lot of talent.
Yes.
And there's a great cloud of uncertainty hanging over them because the quarterback and the head coach are both in their contract years. Mm-hmm. So no one knows what the future holds. And,
great point.
And I think ownership likes the fact that there's some discomfort. And there are a lot of people who are powerful businessmen who like their employees to be uncomfortable. Yeah. So they've lost a lot of talent. I'm leery of what they have in the middle of the defensive line. We'll have to see someone step up there. Absolutely. I do like Mike Zimmer being the defensive coordinator. I think they need his tough approach. I think they can be competitive for a playoff spot. Right now, based on what they have and what I've seen, I wouldn't pick them to win the division. But no one. It's literally been 20 years since the NFC East has had a repeat winner in the division, so that wouldn't be a headline. But I think they've got a chance to be in the playoffs, and it will depend on how they get together, and might depend on some of the contracts. But I guarantee you this: it'll be interesting because they are never dull.
This scenario surrounding this team kind of reminds me of 1975. When the Dirty Dozen came in, not a whole lot was expected of the Cowboys that year, and certainly not a whole lot expected this year. But they have some unexpected, unseen, as you just pointed out, talent. And in my opinion, this is a great opportunity for the second and third year guys like Mozzie Smith. A great opportunity to step into an opportunity and grab a hold of that thing.
Yes.
Help this team get to where it possibly could get.
I would say DeMarvion Overshown, the linebacker they drafted from Texas, who missed all last year with an injury. Looks like he's going to be a star. I would say young receivers like Jalen Tolbert and Jalen Brooks, they've got a real opportunity to step up. And I think it's important to point out that the 1975 team Preston is talking about, with 12 and unheard of 12 rookies making the team, went to the Super Bowl. Yeah. Percy Howard caught the only pass of his career, a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
And it was against a Hall of Famer in Mel Blount.
Yep. Right.
We talked about this on the previous show.
I think Sam Williams, too, guys. That's just one name I'll mention.
Physical talent's there, Nathan. He's got to show maturity. Yeah. He's got to make better decisions. But the physical talent's all there.
I think he's going to make that jump, Brad. I do believe that this year is going to be a breakout year for Sam Williams.
Well, I hope so, because they need it.
Yeah,
yes, we do.
Like you said, Brad, a lot of talent left. A lot of it went to Washington.
Some of it did.
Along with Dan Quinn, the coach, former defensive coach of the Cowboys. But I think this team has a shot if those second and third year, some of the rookies step up. I mean, just step up into the role that you were drafted to be, Mozzie.
Yes.
This is a great opportunity for a guy that has all of the talent, all of the physical abilities to be and take the Cowboys to that next step. I don't know if they understand that or have taken that mental aspect of it
Yes.
in their minds and heart, and just said, "Hey, this is an opportunity for me. I need to just step up a little bit, do a little bit more work, a little bit more study."
That's right,
Take
Preston.
the Dallas Cowboys to the next level.
We will certainly
Let's
find
do
out.
it.
But the great thing is, it's sports, and we
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen.
That's true.
Everybody
Yes.
listening is
Yep.
sure they know what's going to happen, and it's all. I know we're almost out of time. It's always amazed me that any team in the NFL could make any offensive mistakes, because especially with social media, we have found out how many offensive coordinators there are out there. Hundreds of thousands of everybody
Yes.
with a Twitter account and a Facebook page is an offensive coordinator.
Yes.
How they ever make a mistake, these teams, I have no idea.
Nobody
With
knows.
all
Yeah.
that help,
Yeah. That's another problem, I think, for
Yeah.
well,
that's another topic.
That's another-
That's another topic.
Yes.
we'll get into
Yes.
that. So, Nathan, what can you say? He's the best, isn't he?
I
He's
mean,
the best.
he's a legend. He's the voice of our Dallas Cowboys for
Thank you.
46 years. And to be on the same stage with him right now is unbelievable for me.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Brad.
Anytime.
Really appreciate you coming on and capping off our. I think this is our 8th episode, and
Yes,
you have
it
just
is.
capped it off for us. Hopefully,
So happy.
we'll get into some additional shows. Next episode features a guy you know very well. You appreciate him. He's Mr. Cowboy,
Oh, Bob Lilly,
Bob Lilly. Bob Lilly is going to be on our
one of the
next
greatest
show.
ever.
Thank you again, sir, for being with us.
bet.
Thank you, Trey Giles,
Thank you,
our
Trey.
producer from RNPR. You can follow us, folks, if you haven't already been there for us. The champions are on social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, which is Twitter. Audio only on TikTok, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. Nathan, thank you so much for being with us. And as
Thank you,
we always say,
Here
here we go.
we go.